All right, we practiced this in class, but I told you guys I'd make an optional video to kind of help you talk through it. So I'm going to do one of each of these types, and I changed one of these problems in your notes to kind of more match your homework. I suspect this is the one you're going to want to have the most questions about. All right, so I'm going to do one of these up here. So reminder, when we deal with tiles, in this case, when we get to next week when we're doing multiplying binomials, we'll actually use the tiles to do the modeling. But for now, we're just canceling out like terms. This is what you might see. So what we're going to look for is we're going to look for two of this same thing. Remember, the unshaded ones are positive, the shaded ones are negative. And when I take a positive and a negative, they cancel out. So like if I have $1 and I spend $1, well, I don't have any dollars. Those canceled out. Having that dollar and spending it canceled out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take everything that I can cancel out. I'm going to do that. So right here, I have a positive and a negative. They cancel out. I don't have anything over here with the x's. Now down here, I can cancel these two because they're opposites, but up here, I have nothing to cancel. Over here, I have 4 positives and 1 negative, so these two can cancel out. So then I look at whatever I've got left. Well, I've got these 2x squareds, I've got this 1 negative x, and I've got these 3 positive 1s. Well, I write that as, 2x squareds minus 1x plus 3. Now, remember, when we use these are like kind of our invisibles. We have our invisible 1 exponent that we don't have to write unless we want to, and this invisible 1. We're not going to leave that in an answer. As we talked about in class, that's a dirty rock, and our final answer should be a sparkling diamond. So when I rewrite this, it'll be 2x squared minus x plus 3. This is not wrong. I would not mark this wrong, but remember, when you look at a final answer like on a test or something, you're going to see this, and this is a more proper final answer, but this is still correct. All right? So that's how we model. We just look for zero pairs and cancel them out. And we're kind of doing the same thing when we do algebraically. Just instead of having tiles, we're kind of doing that algebraically. I don't know what else to say, okay? So the strategy that I taught you guys for this, you can use colors or you can use shapes. I'm going to use shapes because most of you seem to be unwilling to use highlighters or colors or anything like that. So I usually pick the same shapes. You can use different shapes if you want to. Now the first thing we need to talk about is right here. I have this plus here. If I just have a plus, that doesn't change anything inside the parentheses. Now if I have a negative, that does. Or if I have a number like plus 5 is going to change what's inside the parentheses. But if I just have this plus here, I don't really need to worry about it because it's not going to affect what's happening inside there because it's kind of an invisible 1. What I am going to do, though, is I'm going to go through every single one of my terms, and anything that doesn't have a coefficient, I'm going to give it a 1. Because otherwise, I might forget, well, I have an x and minus 2x. If I don't see a number there to subtract, I might forget that there's a 1 there. Okay? So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to use symbols. So I am going to start with a circle. So I use, for the squares, I use circles. So like, for the squareds, I use a circle. For the x's, I use a square. And then I use a heart for the 1s. That's just how I roll. I mean, you can use a cloud. You can use whatever you want to, as long as you do it consistently. All right, so one of the things that I'm noticing people have trouble with is they're forgetting that the sign goes in front, the sign in front of the number goes with it. So what you can do is when you start circling your terms, which is each individual chunk, start at the variable and circle towards the front. Now remember, an x squared and an x are different. They have to be identical. So like if I had, so these both have an x, but this has an x squared. They're not like terms. You can't combine them. So for this one, I'm going to start at the end. I'm going to circle letter, number, sign. There we go. Here I see another x squared. I'm going to circle letter, number, sign. All right? Now, when I look for my x's I'm putting a box around, so I'm going to do letter, number, sign. Letter, number, sign. And then my 1s, I make sure I get, there's no letter, but I have to do number and sign. So sometimes when you circle your terms, if you start from the back, the other strategy that I taught you was to put up walls in front of each of the, so like, let me show you what I mean by that. So like if we had, so it was negative 2x squared plus 1x minus 1 plus 1x squared minus 2x. If you put a wall in front of each of those, plus or minus signs, you've separated out your terms, and now all you have to do is circle everything between the walls box everything between the walls. You see what I'm saying? So if you want to put up the walls, that can also help you because the walls separate out your terms too. Okay? So now that I've done this, I'm going to put it in standard form. So no matter what the exponents are, standard form always means I start with the highest exponent, I move to the lowest one. The lowest exponent, the last thing is always the constant because technically its exponent is x to the 0, but we'll talk about that in Unit 6. Okay? The constant is always at the end and the highest exponent is always at the beginning. So the highest exponent I see is 2, and I've got 2 of them. So I have negative 2x squared plus 1x squared. And they're circled, so I'm going to circle them again. I've gotten them out of that one, so I'm going to cross them off. Now the next thing I see is x's. I have positive 1x and minus 2x. Okay, I've got those, so I'm going to cross them off. And then I see this minus 1 all by itself. Okay, so now that I've kind of rearranged them so that my like terms are together, now I'm going to actually combine them. And when I combine the like terms, all I'm doing is combining the coefficients. So I have negative 2 and positive 1. I owe $2, I have $1, that means I owe 1 x squared. Okay, so I combine the coefficients, but then the number, the variable combination that's after them, that stays the same. So this is my quadratic term, so when I'm done with it, it's going to be quadratic. Okay, this is my linear part because it's just x to the 1 power. 1 minus 2 is negative 1x for my linear term, and then I have a minus 1 for my constant. Now remember, we've got those invisibles. I don't need to leave these ones here as my invisible 1 coefficient. So my final answer would be negative x squared minus x minus 1. All right? So that's how I do it. Let's look over here at what the difference is between when we have a negative. Now when we have a negative, this is a minus sign, right? So x squared minus 3x minus 4 minus 2x minus x plus 1. This is minus sign, though, also is kind of the same thing as negative. And negative means opposite. So what I'm going to do is whenever I see just a minus sign in front of a set of parentheses, I'm going to write O over everything inside the parentheses. O stands for opposite. And so when I go down to this step and I'm putting them together, I'm going to flip the signs on them when I rewrite them down below. Let me show you what that means. So first of all, I'm going to show you what it looks like when I use walls. We're going to do this. We're going to kind of ignore this minus because I already dealt with the minus by putting O's on top of that. Okay, now I'm going to start, now that I've separated my terms, I'm going to start putting their symbols on them. This one gets a circle, that gets a circle, the X's get a box. And again, whatever shape you want to put, you do it. Okay, now I'm going to rewrite them grouped below. Oh, sorry about that. I got to put my invisible coefficients, my coefficients there. So I have 1x squared, and it says 2x squared here, but it says opposite. So instead of putting positive, I'm going to put minus 2x squared. Okay? Now, so I crossed those off because I took care of them. Minus 3x, and it says minus 1x, but it says O over it. So the opposite of minus 1x is plus 1x. Cross those off. And then I have minus 4. And it says plus 1, but it says O, so I'm going to put minus 1. And that's my combined terms. Now that I've got them regrouped, now I actually combine them. This is the part that you're going to make the mistake on. That's what you're more likely to make a mistake on. So be really careful there. Anytime you see a minus in front, make sure you write that O. So 1 minus 2 is negative 1x squared. Negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2x. Negative 4 minus 1 is minus 5. Clean this answer up, and I get negative x squared minus 2x minus 5. Now for the last one, this one, you have some problems on your homework like this, and I didn't go over them in class, so bad me. Some classes I may have gone over them, we'll find out. But for this one, what we're going to do is, the first thing, so there's 2 ways we can do this. We can distribute, we can make a table, but we have to handle what's in front of these parentheses before we can do anything else. So what I suggest we do is distribute. Okay, so I have 2x plus 3's, so I'm going to distribute that too. So 2 times x is 2x, 2 times 3 is positive 6. Now I'm going to distribute this positive 5 to everything inside this parentheses. Remember, I stopped distributing when I hit the end parentheses. So positive 5 times x squared is 5x squared. Positive 5 times 2x is positive 10x. Positive 5 times negative 1 is minus 5. Now I do the same process above. Okay, there went the lights. Hold on, we're working on getting them up while I write my walls. There we go, they came back. Okay, so now again, I'm going to do the same thing. I put my walls up in front of my term, so in front of each plus or minus sign, I put a wall up, and now I'm just going to start putting my symbols. So that's a box, there's a heart, circle, box, heart. And again, I'm just using what I use up here. Whatever ones you want to use, that's up to you. Okay, you get down with your bad self. Okay, so now again, now that I've got them here, I'm going to start grouping them, and I always start with the highest one. So all I see is this one circled thing, 5x squared. Okay, so I'm done with that one. You circle it. But I've got 2 in boxes, so I've got a positive 2x. Notice there's no sign here, but if I don't see a sign, it's positive. I always assume positive when I don't see a sign. So I have a positive 2x and a positive 10x. And I have a positive 6 and a minus 5. Make that a little bit more hardy. Okay, so my 5x squared, there's nothing to combine. It's all by itself. 2 plus 10 is positive 12x. 6 minus 5 is, positive 6 and negative 5 is positive 1. And that's my final answer because I've only got one of each thing. All right, tomorrow I'm going to show you a different method to deal with this because tomorrow we're going to talk about area and perimeter, which is our biggest application of this skill.